without further ado, I want to welcome you all. And this is the workshop, Think Language Teaching Outside the Box, Think Japanese Storytelling Box. And I will turn it over to our first presenters, and I will make sure to pin you.
Okay, it's going to be me.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Tara and everyone. Thank you very much for coming. And I'm going to share the screen. So just like Tara explained to us, it's going to be about think language teaching outside the box, think Japanese storytelling box. So there'll be 5 of us. So we're going to have a very brief self-introduction. First, I'm Natsuko Shibata Perera, and I'm teaching Japanese to university students at SOAS, University of London. Megumi-san, next, please.
Hi, my name is Megumi Bailey. I'm living in York, the UK. I'm teaching Japanese at the University of York. So pass it to Géraldine.
Merci. My name is Géraldine Enjelvin. I'm French and I teach, I'm a French lecturer teaching French at the University of York in the UK. And then I think it should be Yumi.
Hey, hello. My name is Yumi Nixon. I also teach Japanese at the University of York. Okay, so I just pass it to Ulrike then.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good day, whatever. My name is Ulrike Wray and I teach at the University of York and I teach German. Back to Natsuko.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to give you another plan for today, just briefly. It's going to be 2 parts. So in part 1, we will have 2 presentations by team 1, team 2. Each of us team has a question answer time. And in part 2, everyone joins in a fun activity so that you will never become sleepy and bored. And between the 2 parts, I will explain about what you do and quickly, and we have a break in between. So it's not going to be too long for 2 hours without any break. So yeah, let's get started. I'm going to start first as a team 1. Team 1, Megumi and I will present about what our involvement in Kamishibai. Okay. I'm going to start with mine. Let's see. This is going to be okay. I'm going to start, I'm going to talk about Japanese poetry in Kamishibai, creative writing class of tanka in a university language class. I think many of you know haiku, especially haiku, but I'm going to just briefly give you an introduction about haiku and tanka. Both of them have simple structures based on syllable sounds and letters. And they are art forms since the age of mythology, enjoyed by high court famous poets to unnamed ordinary people. Haiku may be much better known by more worldly known as the world's shortest poetry constructed with just 17 syllables, 575. And actually haiku has been enjoyed with pictures like this. It's called haiga. Tanka is actually older and longer version of haiku, 57577 syllables. The oldest tanka was said to be made by a god in mythology. And it's excuse me?
Natsuko-san, the slides aren't moving, so I don't know if you mean to have them moving, but someone in the chat asked why the slides aren't moving for us.
Uh-oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you might have to go out and come back in again.
Okay, I'm going to share. So it didn't show, or I'm sorry, I cannot tell.
All the slides, but it wasn't moving from one slide to the next.
Oh, okay. I don't know why. Does it moving?
That's better. Yep.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm going to start from here. Haiku and tanka. Simple structures, syllable sounds, art forms since the age of mythology, and enjoyed by famous poets and ordinary people. Haiku is the world's shortest poetry with just 17 syllables, 575. And it's been enjoyed by with pictures called haiga. And tanka is older and longer version of haiku, 57577 syllables. And oldest tanka was said to be made by a god in mythology and oral origin, mainly enjoyed by aristocrats until Meiji era. And this is also come as a calligraphy with some pictures. This is called gasan. And so tanka is a narrated song. And still, well, this is the recreation of ancient aristocrats' elegant time of enjoying tanka poetry like this. And both haiku and tanka, especially haiku, ingrained in the Japanese education system from early on, like elementary school. This is for example, this is a greeting campaign, and the students are told to come up with 575 jingles, and they come up with some visuals like decorated like this. So why tanka and kamishibai in my Japanese language class? Conventional Japanese language textbooks and classroom teaching, very rigid, formal, knowledge-based. And they hardly provide creative writing opportunity. They rarely involve emotions. And storytelling, yes, there is some storytelling, but very limited to traditional folk tales or narrative prose, in prose. So, but students are eager to express their emotions, especially during the COVID in the last 2 years. They were so, confined in their own things, and they could not know how to express themselves. So I asked students to create tanka together with visuals, just like gasan, and so that they become familiarized with syllables and rhythm of Japanese language and enjoy creativity and share emotions and feelings. So during tanka creation, students often showed a variety of images to explain their tanka. They could not decide on one image. So we decided to choose one image per line. And the students because the class was online on Zoom, so they used online slides, and students created a collage or including animating functions. So in my class, it went on like this. The procedure is like this. I introduced tanka and introduce about Kamishibai. Students create tanka, choose one visual image for line in tanka, each line in tanka. Combine them in 5 slides, present it to the class, and explain the background, why you made this tanka with this image, and share comments. So this is something like one of the students made. She did this, not only tanka, but illustration is her own creation. She really enjoyed this. And so I'm going to present more examples, tanka kamishibai by the students so that you can enjoy. So this one, for example, so this is the way they actually submitted as a their portfolio. 5 slides, and the 6 slides have just like Gasan with the whole tanka with 1 picture. Let's start. トルティーヤを一緒に作り、鍋物も寮のメモリー、ずっと守るよ。Next one. 池のそば。猫が桜に手を伸ばす。水門の波。月夜に光る。Next one. 雪が降り、君の絵に見る。ぬくもりが氷のような。痛みを溶かす。And then I will show you another one. This is a little creative one. Hold on. Oops. So this student made this Kamishibai using the app called Prezi. This is more like a more animated slides. さよならで日本友と一緒に抱きしめた距離が消えて心つながる。So this is the one they showed, and I'm gonna go back to this. I'm sorry, many of you may not understand Japanese, but this tanka is more like a sound. You enjoy the sound. So I'm going to give you more, if you have a question, I'll answer your questions. What was it about later, but I'm just going to move on. So after this class, well, during the presentations in the chat comments, the students say, well, nice idea to use your own photos, impactful tanka images. I love it, beautiful image and expressions. Images are right on. The colors were pretty, tanka was wonderful, applause. And then after in the reflection, they said, I understood them well because they were shown with pictures. And I understood both meaning and emotions very well. And I tried to write tanka in brush and ink during winter break. I'm sorry, I made some spelling mistakes. So students actually really had an impact by this tanka with visuals, not only the sounds. So I would say tanka as creative writing lets the students familiarize with the Japanese culture and tradition, play with the rhythm, words, and forms of Japanese, find inner voice, and share beyond cultural differences well, at University of London, there are many students from all over the world, not only UK, many Europe, Middle East, Asia, and it worked very well. And Kamishibai format actually provides mixed modes that expand expressions and promotes deeper understanding and shares emotions through stories. So I find Kamishibai has a vast potential as a platform to enjoy language and its learning, appreciate different cultures, engage all ages, be applied to any contents like tanka, be adaptive to new technologies like Zoom and slides, and open a new horizon for language learning. Just like as Tara said, almost limitless adaptability that makes Kamishibai an exciting and vital communicative format that will continue to motivate artists, storytellers, and educators in their respective communities to create new Kamishibai performance into the future. Thank you very much. And I'm very sorry that initially my screen was frozen. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Next, Megumi-san, please.
Right. Is everything working okay? Yeah. Right. I'm talking about Kamishibai outside of the box. I'm going to share 2 activities in my Japanese beginners classes today, but let me start with my background very briefly. I was born in Japan and brought in Japan, and I really enjoyed Kamishibai as an audience when I was a little girl, and also I enjoyed Kamishibai as a presenter. And these are taken at my family runs a kindergarten in Japan. And I moved to the UK and raising up 3 children on my own. So at home, I read Kamishibai to my children and they really liked it. And they like copying mommy, so they created their own stories using the Kamishibai in a traditional way. And as they went to school, I brought Kamishibai to their school here and there to share my Kamishibai with them in Japanese. And yes, I did in Japanese, but they were engaging because there is the image there and the story they know, they can follow fine. So Kamishibai, as you all know, I don't have to say, repeat over and over again, language learning, it's engaging, interactive, creative. That's a wonderful educational tool. And since 2001, I started teaching Japanese at the University of York. And sometime recently, I read an article written by Géraldine, one of our presenter. And then I realized, wow, Kamishibai outside of Japan and seems popular. And that was my eye-opening, and started kind of exploring what can we do that Kamishibai at the higher education. So that's kind of my starting point about 5 years ago. And then reflecting on my own practice and primary goals of teaching Japanese, in the university. These are the kind of the desire or goals that I have. Needless to say, I need to help students to develop their Japanese language learning. And funny thing is, when they get older, they are being intimidated to share their own thoughts, opinions. So I need to help them. It's okay. And in order to do that, I need to create an environment that they don't feel nervous. Non-threatening environment is crucial. And I learned from some other kind of educationalists that familiar, comfortable topics and objects to the students are the starting point to express themselves. And of course, culture and language go hand in hand. So these are kind of my primary goals within me for last 10 years or so. So I was thinking, is there anything that I can do with Kamishibai? So I started thinking, and some elements of Kamishibai mode can be utilized in my teaching. So I used the image and change it from image to text. I use these two things in my class this year. The left one is 7 Blind Mice, written by Ed Young, American author, and some of you might have heard of this story. And the other one is Haru wa Akebono, the oldest Japanese essay written around 1000 AD. So I use these two things for my attempt. So the first activity is a very quick trial based on kind of a guessing game. Basically, students need to create that story as a team, as a classroom, from the pictures from the Ed Young's picture book. I'm not going to read everything. I just set at the starting point and the last part, and they just compose, looking at the pictures. So there were 7 mice. I did in Japanese in class, but I just did in English, paraphrasing. There were 7 mice, went to the lake and found an unknown object. They scared and ran back. The first activity I said for the just guessing, if you were one of the mice, what would you say? And these are some of the examples that students shared. Tasukete, help, scary, mommy, oh no, kya, boom, boom, boom. So that's what they said in Japanese. And I set up the scene, right. On Monday, Red Mouse went out to investigate and he came back. What do you think he said to the rest? And of course, the students started straight away in English, elephant leg. And I said, no, this is what the Red Mouse said. That is a big pillar in a plain casual form they just learned in the class. They understand the game. So I share the rest of the pictures one by one and ask the pair to just guess, what would you say if you were this green mouse, and so forth. So they said it, and they gained a new kind of nouns that they have used, say slide or swing, they haven't learned that. And then they came back, asked them the classroom to repeat what they have come up with. They started arguing. The clever white mouse decided to go out. On Sunday, the white mouse went out to investigate. He just ran up through thoroughly investigating, and finally, he said, it is an elephant. So everyone said, Zoyo. So all the mice just investigated with the mouse, white mouse, and then find out, right, that's an elephant. So in his book, there was a lesson written by the author. And I asked them to class, what kind of lesson would you like to say if you were one of these mice? So these are some examples they came up. So it says teamwork is important, or the putting all together is important. Just grasp the bigger picture is important, something like that. So this is kind of very quick response activities I set up. So this is the first warming up. And then I could see students kind of respond quite well with this kind of guessing game. I tried this one, Haru wa Akebono, in spring, the dawn, written by Sei Shonagon around 1000 AD in the Makura no Soshi. I started explaining the background of the author, the history and the timing, and how unique this essay was regarded. Because Natsuko was saying about kanka haiku, we have to use the kigo, seasonal term, but the author didn't use that for this essay. So it was quite unique. And there's a kind of punchline. She focused on the 4 seasons. Everything's, oh, admirable, beautiful, wonderful. But the very last phrase in winter, it's bad. So they all laughed about the history, background information. And then I said to them, I'm going to ask you to think about some kind of image or the keywords pop into your head that you like, you admire, something kind of impressive, you cherish, only a few minutes. And then just get a few keywords with that image and let's write their own essay, short poem. And this is mine. It's very, very sweet because at that time I was thinking about Japanese winter with mikan, a small orange, eating in the kotatsu, heated table. That was my kind of idea straight into my head. And I shared this picture with the class, and I said, 冬はみかん. In winter, the small orange. 冬のみかんは, the winter みかん is tasty and juicy. I like eating them at kotatsu table. In England, there are satsumas and tangerines. However, Japanese mikan's the best. Sitting at the kotatsu eating mikan, I love it. So that's what I said. And I'm going to share some students' work based on this. Student 1 said, I like music, orchestra, I'm part of it. That's my friend. So she shared these photographs with these keywords. And this is what she came up from this keywords and image. 音楽は友達. Music is friends. オーケストラは面白い. Orchestra is interesting and fun. The loud sound is great. The soft sound is great. Together, I make music. So that's what she came up with. And I could see her in this picture as well. Our next student shared this. Coffee, early morning. And that's all he said to start with. And he shared his photograph taken at Scotland. And that's what he said. 朝はコーヒー. The morning, it's coffee. Morning is tranquil. Seldomly, any soul I find. In the morning, it's cold, but coffee is warm. I sit down at the windowsill. Coffee is tasty. So there are a few more, but I think the time is a bit limited, so I'm going to just stop for sharing the students' work. So what I have done in my class is, outside of butai, show or looking at image and encourage students to think their imagination to use and then come up with some keywords and then change into verbalizing. And after all, they shared in class. So just going back to my primary goal I was saying at the start. Yes, they can revise and also utilize what they have learned in the year. And that's non-threatening. Guessing game is just fun. It's playful. Nothing in wrong or right answer. They just can participate. And so they can kind of happy to just share in a kind of more relaxed atmosphere. And something personal that they can share, that they cherish and enjoy. And not only culture, but I could share some literature they really enjoyed. So maybe to some degree, I was able to use some variants of Kamishibai as a useful tool in order to achieve these goals as language practitioner at higher education. So thank you very much for listening. And team 1 is finished, so we'll take some question and answer, Natsuko-san.
Yes, thank you very much. The team 1 presentation is now over, complete. So we'd like to take some comments, questions, anything, please. Koji-san sent in the chat, Megumi's students have a great grasp of the essential kata of makura no soshi. Yes. Yes, just like haiku, the tanka, Japanese traditional ones, not only literature, but also kendo, judo, whatever, kata is very important. Hi, Tara.
Yes, thank you for such interesting presentations. I think it's really fascinating how you both have taken Kamishibai in the direction of classical poetry. because I haven't seen that done in Japan very much. But my question was for Megumi-san with the, you said outside of the butai. So when the students performed their images and poetry, does that mean they did not perform them in the stage?
Can you just repeat perform?
So I was wondering if the students performed them in the stage at the end, or when you wrote outside the butai, was that saying that they did not perform in the stage?
I mean, the stage is a classroom, so they were staying where they are, and they just read out what they have written. So it's not really on the stage, so to speak, just more like sharing what they have come up with. And one student didn't have any photograph with him. I didn't share today. However, he had a sound in his head, and I could share with him because he's half Japanese. And he wanted to share the sounds of higurashi, which is a very specific cicada creating in the evening time in summertime. But none of the other classmates could hear it. So instead of sharing the picture, he had to share finding out the sounds of higurashi cicadas to let them understand what he wanted to create. So it was, again, not the image, but outside of box, outside of image, coming to the hearing the sound. So it was really interesting.
Walter in the chat says, I'm inspired by use of poetry in Kamishibai. I've been wanted to try, now I'll try. Yes, please. Hi, Géraldine.
Yes, I'm going to ask Megumi a question. Am I right in thinking that, I think it applies to both of you, but definitely Megumi, I think that you did not use the butai? Yes.
Yeah, I've got the butai at home, but when I carry the butai, always I'd like to do the Kamishibai performance. That's kind of I used to do. But in this case, I just presented the image. So students need to start from the image and then verbalizing afterwards.
Yeah. Thanks.
Karin-san.
はい、素晴らしいプレゼンテーションありがとうございます。Thank you for the great presentation. Yes, I'm Japanese. Also, I have a question to Megumi-san. You made the students do this presentation with the Kamishibai, and you said it's a beginner class. When they did the presentation, how long have they been taking your class? Like how many weeks or how many months to get to that level?
This is the second year of our syllabus course. So they have learned long form, mass form, and they just started learning a short form, te form, and things like that. So this is towards the end of that syllabus, and they have learned how to write diaries. So they know how to utilize short form. So I just wanted to play with a short form in a Makura no Soji essay style. And so the ending, they don't have to finish with the mass des ending, just kind of straight into the plain form ending. And of course, they have to find new words from the Google, or they can ask me. But yeah, that's what they came up.
I see. And then how many times a week are they taking the class, your class?
I mean, in terms of the
Twice
course.
a week, or yes, the course.
Right. Our university, this is extracurricular courses. So 2 hours per week, and then altogether 19 weeks. That's kind of the entire first level. So they are the second year. So they have done most of the 2 years study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else from anyone? Oh, hi, Tara.
Just quickly, I was really intrigued by the student who wanted to express the sound of the higurashi, because so much of Kamishibai as a dramatic form is about the sound effects or the onomatopoeia. So actually having your students come up with sound effects, and there's so many of them in Japanese, it's also a really fun way to engage them with the language, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So let's move on to, can we move on to team 2 then? Thank you.
So I'm going to share my screen and move this. There we go. Okay. So hello, and thank you very much for staying for this part 2 of our session. Now, first of all, I'm going to concentrate on our Kamishibai project, and I'm going to set the scene. Now, over the past few years, what's happened is that the University of York has actually reaffirmed one of its key principles, and therefore it's sort of highlighted its commitments to public good. And as a result, the University of York does encourage students to take part in community projects. Now, community projects are open to all undergraduates. They're team-based, and obviously they are voluntary. And what they have to do, what each student team has got to do, they got to create, deliver an event, and create one resource. So we embarked, we being Ulrike, Yumi, and myself, we embarked on this Kamishibai project. And first of all, the first step, we had to produce a short video in which we explained what Kamishibai is, all the learning teaching affordances it offers, and also we ended up that 9-minute video, which was also a little bit of a training video, and also we wanted to track students. It ends with a question: why don't you volunteer and open a story box yourself? Part 2, what we had to do is recruit student volunteers. So we put together a short advert, as it were, and we put it on the careers website. And therefore we managed to recruit about, I would say, 5 students. We delivered our first masterclass in November 2021. So the actual project ran from November 21 to mid-February 22. This is us very much in action. Now, during the first masterclass, which was about an hour and a half, we only met 3 of our student volunteers because sadly the other 2 were ill with COVID. So we shown them the range of possibilities afforded by Kamishibai. We lent them a butai. And this is why I asked the question about Megumi about using a butai, because for us and in other activities that we have since then delivered, we do use the butai. The butai is an introduction to it already tells a story. And we asked them to pick up from 3 to 4 picture boards from a range of Kamishibai stories, which I had brought with me, and Yumi had done the same. And we asked them, okay, we're going to give you 20 minutes, pick up a couple of picture boards, write a short story, it could be a dialogue, whatever, and then use the butai, use the Kamishibai, and show us what you can do. Now, that was very daunting, but they all did it. And after 20 minutes, I must say that we were very, very impressed already. By the time they met us, they had already chosen the theme of friendship in agreement with the local school they were about to perform the Kamishibai in. They had already decided that they would choose and they would customize and shorten a story called The Rainbow Fish. I don't know whether you know this story. It's a lovely, it's a delightful tale about a beautiful fish that eventually makes friends, eventually by sharing its prized possession, its glittering scales. They decided they would illustrate the storyboards, they would design their own storyboard with glittering bits and pieces, they would use collage, and also they would design a couple of activities to encourage students' engagements. They had some vocabulary and enrichment activities, they had some comprehension questions in English, and they were thinking of asking students to expand on the story, but I explained to them that it might be a little bit ambitious given the time they had been allocated. So it was really to reinforce their oracy and hopefully to improve their oracy. Second masterclass, we met the students, by which time they had customized the story, and they were able to present, I would say, that most of their picture boards, and therefore we were able to give a lot of feedback on all these areas. Now here are students in action, Libby, Sylvia, and Ziki. And I'd like you to please note the effort they've made to constantly engage students and motivate them to take part, but also the quality of their illustrations. They've done it themselves. Now, what we wanted to do, and we still do want to do, so we want to duplicate, or at least we want to carry on a similar project. So we asked them for their feedback. And I've selected two students in particular. One, because she's an international student, so I highlighted the keywords, and therefore for her, she joined the project because she could practice English outside of university. The skills that she worked on and she was able to improve: teamwork, resilience. What did she think of Kamishibai? She thought that it was great because, again, in schools very often it is difficult to present students, or pupils in this case, to other learning styles and also to other storytelling activities. So I at that point, I would say that I do feel that Kamishibai, if it's used as it should, and if it's used maybe confidently, is definitely a great tool that would easily enable tutors or practitioners to embark on the decolonizing education journey from both a content point of view and a format point of view. The second feedback quotes are from Eleanor. Again, why did she embark on this thing? Because she's very much interested in art therapy. But I certainly would like you to look at the bottom quote. The children were able to gain a greater cultural insight into non-Western methods of storytelling. And again, this idea of interculturality, which again is one of the key missions of our university, but also many universities. The school, the nursery school, they were very happy. The feedback was great. If we can run another session, they will say yes. They're very, very keen. What have we learned? Well, initially, what we were hoping is that the students' lesson plans and custom-made resources could be used as a blueprint to develop further Kamishibai workshops. We've also learned that given that the student volunteers do not necessarily come from the education department, they will not necessarily embrace a teaching career. We thought that next time we would definitely target a primary school, because all parties involved would benefit a lot more from the Kamishibai session. They had a few, it was harder with nursery school pupils. What we learned is that because it's a very low cost project, we are going to run similar sessions, but in a nursing home. So the project is going to become an intergenerational project, and hopefully the Kamishibai session will hopefully stimulate memory and memories, maybe stimulate again oracy and foster well-being. We already have a residential care home, and they are very, very keen. Last but not least, we've already reused the students, well, at least some of the students' picture boards, because we ran a face-to-face primary school outreach session. So we used the rainbow fish story as an introduction to certain colors, yes, colors in German, Japanese, French, and Spanish. So we did that with a whole group of 30 pupils. Then we split the group into 3, and then I used the small penguin Kamishibai story, and I introduced in French and Spanish colors, animals, and animal sounds, so onomatopoeias again, so they could hear the differences when say you have the same animal that crosses the channel, and then they make a different noise, which they all had a very good laugh at. Why does the French cock say cocorico? This is a good question. my colleagues, so Yumi and Ulrike, they introduced the same items, but in their respective language, and they chose the Kamishibai story, The Town Musicians of Bremen. And here is Ulrike in action. Thank you very much. And now it's going to be Ulrike.
Hello. So yes, as you can see, there are 3 pictures there of me presenting the Bremer Stadtmusikanten, or a story about 4 animals that are unloved as they get older, and they want to become musicians. And the children really loved it. And as Géraldine pointed out so nicely, the animal sounds are different in each of the languages. And we also checked afterwards whether they could remember them, and they were very good, the pupils. It was great fun. So I teach at the University of York, and I teach year-long courses such as beginners, intermediate. These are post-beginners, like level 2 that Megumi was mentioning earlier, and post-A-level students, as well as short courses for beginners and intermediate and advanced. I asked myself whether I could use storytelling in teaching German, and I did this for many years. I used many stories, such as the the town musicians from Bremen, which is relatively unheard of in the UK. And then I came about Kamishibai thanks to Géraldine's introduction to me with these projects, and I wondered whether I could use Kamishibai in lower classes, in lower levels, for a variety of students with different backgrounds, rather than usually one uses these storytelling things in the higher levels because one needs the vocabulary. So my learning outcome, however, was oral exam practice, because my students have to pass their oral exams and they have to practice listening and speaking. So what did we do? At first I prepared the students and I gave them some handouts. They had to, for example, find out words with their mobile phones, with their cell phones. I then told them a story and I asked them to participate. So I asked them to point to body parts, for example, and to copy the animal sounds. The homework was very simple. I gave them each a piece of cardboard and I told them they can do whatever they like. They can leave it blank, they can draw on it, but no words, nothing written, please, and no glitter. I didn't want to have glitter in my brand new bow-tie. So that was what they had to do, and then they were asked to present the story the following week in class. So the starter for the beginners class was finding out what these words were, what these sentences might mean. I gave them some and they could work in pairs, and it was very important that they could work out together, because some of our students are older and some of them bring in huge dictionaries, which is amazing. They use paper dictionaries, and whereas the younger generation is much more happy to just Google translate everything. But they have now found out that you can also use other translation sites which are much better. So they had much fun trying to work out. Some of the words are easy, but they had much fun doing that. And then I started to open my bow tie to grab their attention. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all of this. You are many experts and I'm a newbie. And what I chose as the beginning was a curtain. And the curtain was sort of supposed to give them a theater-like experience. And then I pulled out the storyboards either very slowly or very fast or in a jiggly manner. And then I used a lot of body language, pointing to body parts, for example. And at the end, I had this particular image, which I created myself with lots of color, very swiftly, to show my students that they can create whatever they liked. And we then went over the colors just to check out what colors they could see, which colors could they remember that we had learned the previous week. And here you see some beginners who talked about their best friend. They were asked to work out a piece of, well, 5 sentences or a little bit more. And they were to write about, or not write, to speak about their best friend. And as you can see, they weren't reading off pieces of paper because they had to think about it for a week. They had the time to prepare themselves and they could use bullet points. And that's exactly what we at the University of York want for our students to do in their oral exams, not to read off texts or memorize texts. These students didn't have time to prepare their own cardboard, or they didn't want to. I didn't ask them too much, but they chose some. I have lots of images that they could choose from, and they used to choose them. For the next level up, the level 2 or the intermediate, I wanted to introduce a bit of grammar and a bit of more listening and speaking. It was the same story, but different vocabulary. There were body parts involved and pain and medicines, but in the past tense, and to arrange to go and see a doctor. So they had gap fill exercises, they had a comprehension exercise, and then I presented the story. Again, with each board, I invited audience participation to describe pictures as they could see them. The homework again was the colored cardboard, the specification of either draw, stick on, whatever with the card, and to prepare 10 sentences for portrait of a famous person or somebody they really liked, an artist, a writer, a musician, and to present the story, not by reading it off a piece of paper, but by just with bullet points, so to talk freely. And here are some of the storyboards my students created. On the left-hand side, you see a very, very big bear. This big bear was protecting the little person who happened to be my student. Below is a picture of the Queen and all the things that she likes, because we happen to have celebrated the Queen's 70 years on the throne. In the middle is a student's representation of her favorite composer, namely Beethoven. On the right-hand side at the top is a student's dream of a girl who dreams up stories, and in her presentation she actually very briefly told these 3 stories. And at the bottom you see a depiction of the storyboard of an Indian student of mine who told an Indian fairy tale about a monkey and the crocodile, and that the monkey won, although the crocodile wanted to betray the monkey and eat him. Here you see some students presenting themselves, and as you can see, they didn't read out stuff. I was really impressed, they really didn't. On the left-hand side, we have the student carefully putting in the storyboard. He's then on the right-hand side pointing at it, pointing out what the Queen likes, namely tea, but he also made sure that we all knew that that wasn't her personal favorite cup. On the second picture and the second image, the student is about to point out some things that are very badly represented on this particular picture, but there were little stickmen drawn on it. And the remaining picture is the student with the big teddy. And then I did, of course, another trial run. It was so much fun, I could not do it. Oral exam practice with a higher level, but different storyboards, and with the well-known tale in Germany of the Bremer town musicians, but it's not so well known in the UK. And again, they had gap fill exercise equivalent to their level. And again, I invited audience participation. I asked after each storyboard if somebody could describe what they saw in the picture. Again, they were all given colored cardboard. They could choose which color they wanted. Again, decorate, draw, whatever, 10 to 15 sentences of a portrait of a famous person. It could be anyone they wanted it to be. And then to present the story the following week in class. And here you see some of the storyboards my students prepared. On the top left is Dostoevsky, bottom left, the rat catcher of Hamelin. In the middle, you see the famous rabbit by Dürer, And top right, Sam Fender, I am reliably informed he's a very interesting musician. And at the bottom right, the artist Hans Holbein the Younger. And when the student was talking about Hans Holbein the Younger, she referred back to the student who talked about Dostoevsky, because Dostoevsky really didn't like Hans Holbein the Younger's work because they were too skeletal. And I thought that was amazing for a post-A-level student in terms of doing this ad hoc without any prep. She didn't know that he was going to talk about Dostoevsky. And here you see some of my lovely students. So on the left is Alison talking about her favorite artist, Dürer. The next picture shows Amanda, who's talking about Samuel Beckett and Waiting for Godot. The third picture is the Hans Holbein fan. And on the last picture, at the bottom right, is another Amanda who loves Eva Cassidy. What really got me, and what I thought was the best, and this was not just in the higher levels, it was the same in the lower levels. The students' engagement was immense, not just when it came to my story, but when they each presented their own. As you can see, they are actually looking and listening, and that was amazing. They also asked questions in German of the presenters. So here you can see quite a few bits of feedback, but as you can see, there are lower level feedbacks as well as higher level feedbacks. But the one that I really would like to point out is the one at the bottom. I thought I'd be more nervous, but everyone just looked at the box, not me. And this student was very nervous and didn't like speaking in public. And for me, that really had it in a nutshell. They can have a safe environment where they feel safe to talk in front of some people without feeling worried. So the lessons learned, it is brilliant for introverted and shy students as much as it is for extroverts, and it makes people more confident to speak in public. They are hiding behind the botai, sort of inverted commas. They have the freedom to create or not. And that gives them ownership and agency. It also gives you interculturality. You learn from other cultures, from other students. And there is a huge level of student engagement, which is what we at the university really, really want. We want people as language teachers to engage so that they learn something. And I had no negative comments. None whatsoever. I mean, I was amazed by that. So for me, Kamishibai is an effective and an easy tool that is tactile and versatile for all levels. And it engages students and helps them to practice speaking without the high amount of pressure.
At this point, I'm going to stop sharing because Yumi is going to take over. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully I'm sharing, let's see. Right, is it okay? Can you see the screen? Okay, so I'm the last one to present. I'm going to talk about my Kamishibai activities with Japanese students at the University of York. So Ulrike and also Megumi explained a little bit about our courses, but for Japanese, we have also level 1, level 2, and level 3 for year-long courses. And we have also a short course called Japanese for Intercultural Understanding for beginner level students. So I carried out various Kamishibai activities with students at different levels of proficiency. Some examples are expanding a Japanese folk story by inserting monologues and dialogues of story characters and creating own stories, combining picture cards from different Kamishibai stories and creating own stories, also using pictures to introduce names of objects and animals and the noises they make, like Ulrike and Géraldine explained, and comparing them among different languages and cultures. But today I'd like to focus on number 1 and a set of activities based on Japanese folk story. So aims of these activities were to introduce a traditional method of storytelling in Japan. So it was a cultural introduction, and to make the context of the story clearer and create an engaging atmosphere, and to make reading and writing activities more engaging and creative using Kamishibai and drama techniques. And also to stimulate group interaction through collaborative story creation and telling. Studies on drama and second language learning have shown that the use of activities based on drama techniques are found to improve written and oral communicative skills of learners and the motivation to learn and socio-cultural understanding. They also found to create a positive learning environment through promoting peer collaboration and encouraging students to participate. So I'm going to explain a little bit what I did actually in class. So first of all, now after going back to face-to-face teaching, after a long sort of period of online only teaching, it is quite refreshing to use actual butai and the Kamishibai cards with students. So what I did is I brought the butai to a class and I just put it in front of the class and asked my student what they think this was. So the typical responses I got, well, first of all, is it a briefcase or something? And some thought a puppet show or some sort of show was starting, getting very excited. And very occasionally, I had a student who had heard about Kamishibai, but it was very rare. So it was very interesting to see how they responded to my questions. But usually they ended up asking very practical questions of where they could get it and how much would that be and so on. So after introduction of butai, I introduced the story characters and the context using the front cover of the story. Actually, students had read a simplified story beforehand from the textbook, so they had some understanding of the story. And this is very well-known Japanese story, folk story called Kasa Jizo. Kasa in this case means straw hats, but this is often translated as children's guardian deity. So you can see on this, the left side of the screen, you can see this man. This is illustration of Jizo statue. And as they are said to be the guardian deity of children and also people who are traveling, you often see them at the side of the street or in a cemetery in Japan. So next we read aloud simplified text from a Japanese textbook to begin with to check students' understanding and if they had any questions at that point. And then I showed them two Kamishibai cards, one on the left-hand side of the screen, and asked the student to make a dialogue between the old man and old woman. And then I showed another card, which is on the right-hand side of the screen, and asked them to write monologues of Jizo statues. And you might think, why statues? Are they really talk? But that's what we did in class. And this old man treated them as living creatures, anyway, living things. So now, for those who doesn't know this story, I just explain a storyline very quickly. This is about a story. This is a story about a poor old man and old woman who lived in a mountain. As they were very poor, the old man went to town to sell the bamboo hats they created on a New Year's Eve. It was a very snowy day and he couldn't sell the hats and was coming home disappointed and saw 6 Jizo statues at the side of the street. He was a very kind man and put his straw hat on their heads to protect Jesus from snow. During the night, while the old man and the old woman were sleeping, the Jizo came carrying a lot of food to them. Their generosity was rewarded by Jizos. So this story is based on the moral values of Buddhism. So after students made the dialogue and monologues, they shared in class. And I just introduce you two very short dialogue student created. I just remind you, these are elementary level students. So the first one is harmonious version. I read out Japanese versions, so you can also look at the English translation as well. おばあさん、お腹が空きましたね。食べるものがありません。悲しいですね。おばあさん、新年に花火がしたいですね。でもお金がありません。傘を売ったらどうですか？いいですね。Argumentative version. おばあさん、お金がないから傘を作りましょう。1万個ぐらい作った方がいいですよ。でも、私は力がないから10作りますから、あなたは残りの9990を作ってください。嫌です。私は疲れているんです。でも、お金がないんですよ。So after sharing these dialogues and monologues, we decided to put up a final performance, making use of Kamishibai Butai and Kamishibai cards. So all students and I all participated by taking the role of the old man, the old woman, 6 jizos and narrators. And I helped them move the Kamishibai cards. And then to wrap up these activities, students created their own kasajizo stories, making use of pictures from the textbook that were in pairs. So they used these illustrations to guide their story making, but they could use these in the order they preferred. So some ended up having quite similar stories to the original story, but some ended up having completely different stories, having nasty old man and old woman instead of generous old man and old woman, and so on. So we, after sharing, we read our stories. A student read their stories and summarized, after that, summarized their stories in PowerPoint slides and shared on online platform for the course. So through these activities, students could practice all the language skills in addition to collaborative skills, and they also learned about Japanese culture. So student feedback. The student responses were very good. They all thought it was these activities were useful, and particularly 60% thought they were very useful. And they thought these activities were fun and enjoyable, and also useful to learn vocabulary and also kanji characters, Chinese characters, through reading and writing activities. And also they mentioned these activities encourage collaboration between students and gives sort of freedom as to the level of their participation, because some students are a bit shy, so others can help, so they can work together. And also these are useful activities for cultural learning, as well as building confidence, helping them build confidence in the use of Japanese language. So lessons learned. Now we carried out these activities in one session. So it was probably spent about 90 minutes or so. So it was quite a rush toward the end. So we could have spent more time practicing storytelling itself, so that students could build more confidence. And also, to make the activities even more creative, we could incorporate the other forms of expression, such as their own pictures and music and so on. But overall, these activities are quite fun for myself as well. And these are references I used. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, sorry, this probably should go to, and these are essential reading for all of our team. And thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation and the end of our team presentation. And I stop sharing. And any question, we'll welcome any comments or questions. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
We've had quite a few questions during the course of all three presentations. So I may just call upon the people who wrote them. The first one came from Bowen Lee. So Bowen, do you want to ask your question?
I'm from the United States, so I just wanted to have a clarification on what decolonizing education means, just so that I don't make the wrong assumptions about it.
Thank you. It is a very good question. I think over the past 10, 15 years, but definitely the past 10 years in the UK, there's been, I think that there are several ways of looking at it, but in terms of teaching languages, I think very often in terms of methodology, it tends to be a sort of white Eurocentric, well, Eurocentric, if we can call the UK European, sorry, we've got to be very careful nowadays since Brexit, but let's call them Europeans, a European-centric approach, and also learning styles as well. And I think what one of the students said was that it was obvious that with Kamishibai, there are other ways of telling stories, there are other ways of introducing languages. So it's both from a cultural, but also from a methodology point of view. Have I answered your question?
Thank you. That's a great clarification.
Thank you.
And Hermine had a question about the Eric Carle from Head to Toe story. So I don't know if you want to ask the question yourself, Hermine. But I can go ahead and ask. So she was wondering if the Eric Carle is a published set, or did you?
It was a published set, indeed. It was published by the German publisher called Don Bosco, and I bought it at Christmas, or I got it bought for me for Christmas, and I changed the story line. I was talking about animals, so I wasn't taking what was written on the back of the front page of this particular story, but I changed it for the two levels. So for the very beginners, I changed it, and for the next level up, I also changed it. So the first level, it was just about colors and noises these animals make and the body parts. So the colors we had learned the week before, and so that was just basically consolidating what they had learned and then learning a few new ones. And for the second group, the intermediate learners, I introduced the body parts again, and you know, the pains one would get. For example, with the ear, you can't really get a broken earlobe, but you can get, you know, a painful ear or a hot ear and things like that. So we did that. So that answers the question.
Can you mention the publisher again for me?
Oh, it is Don Bosco, D-O-N. Bosco. Don Bosco was, if I'm not mistaken, a saint.
Yes.
So, Yes,
Now I
they
have
have,
him
they have a
again.
lot. They have a lot, and they also have not just for this particular story was, I think, 1, 2, 3 years. That's why I didn't use it.
Mhm.
But they also have stories for the elderly. It's
Hey.
very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Okay, we have a lot of comments. I was very interested in Hagihara-san's comment about how watching these presentations, he's realizing that Kamishibai can be thought of in a broader sense, that PowerPoint slides can also be considered a Kamishibai. And I'd just like to ask a question in relation to this, because I feel like a lot of your presentations were not so much having the students create a whole Kamishibai on their own, but to react to Kamishibai in different ways and create their own image and text or oral connections, which I think is really wonderful. I tend to want to make a whole story, and that's so time consuming and overwhelming. So I love the way you integrated it. But could you comment on that a little bit, of whether you consider these actual Kamishibai or responses to Kamishibai?
In my case, I'm going to say because I personally haven't. I think the people who should really answer are Yumi and Ulrike, because they've used it in their classroom.
So from my point of view, yes, it is, of course, a reaction to Kamishibai, but I was much more interested in two outcomes. I was interested in learning of new vocabulary and grammatical structures, and the application of this vocabulary and the grammatical applications in order to communicate. And to communicate effectively so that others understand what they were saying. So yes, I think a step further would be definitely to give everybody a little bit of a task. You write something about this, and then this, and then this, and then maybe present together. That might be a possibility, but I didn't do that. I just wanted to see what they would come up with.
I also love the way you shuffle the cards around and use them in different ways, because I do think I had one student who mixed up her cards and had to tell it that way because she was in front of an audience, and she liked that way better. So it's a very creative format. Okay, any other questions? We have Subarashi present. Oh, arigatou gozaimasu. Yoroshikereba, hanabi, kasa 1,000 個 と設定したわけを教えてください. So could you please explain about, yeah.
Yeah, the fireworks. Actually, students created themselves, so I didn't actually set anything. So there, it's stories, totally students' ideas. And I think because we don't do new fireworks on the New Year's Day in Japan, but it's kind of mixed of Chinese sort of New Year's and Japanese New Year, but yes, so it's a totally student's idea, and also about the 10,000 kasa as well. That's their idea for some reason. They thought they wanted to create. They wanted to say they want to create a lot. So somehow they ended up having 10,000 kasa anyway. So yeah, hopefully I answer your question. Okay, answer the question.
Donna, I think you have your hand up.
Sorry. This is a question for Yumi. I think you mentioned that one of the activities you used, you didn't really talk about it, but was combining cards from different stories. Did I misunderstand? Or did you say that? Taking cards from different stories and putting them together to make a new story?
Yes, yes, it was one of the examples I carried out before, but I didn't really explain, yes, in this presentation. But actually what I did, it's a bit like earlier Géraldine explained about her activity, but I brought out several stories, and the student just left on the table, and the student in pair or group of 3, they just looked around and looked at all the cards, and they chose the cards they think would be interesting to create their own story. So it's a sort of random combination of pictures from different stories. So they chose 3 cards. They selected 3. So they just combined, can be as one group selected, for example, a picture of panda and another picture from unrelated, looks like unrelated picture from completely different story, but they always came up with very interesting imaginative stories, just combining random pictures. So they helped each other, usually in 2, in a pair, and they decided the storyline using these pictures. Yeah. So when they're selecting pictures, probably they have certain ideas already, but then they went back to the desk and they started working away the details of the story. And then after finishing, they came up to the front and presented the story, their own story. Yes, and students said it was quite, they were a bit nervous, they said, because it was sort of, didn't spend a lot of time, but they came up with very interesting stories. But again, it was probably they didn't have enough time to practice as much. So they were a bit nervous, but then they said they enjoyed it a lot. So it's an imaginative sort of creation of stories. Yes. Thank you.
If I can come in at this point, yes, it is an activity that I did mention when we did the community project. What we did when we had the first masterclass, and because this is something I've done with education students as well, is that I bring several Kamishibai stories, very, very different. And what I wanted to assess at the time, because it was the first time we were meeting those students, I wanted to assess in a way to what extent the amount of help we would have to give them. Were they creative? What sort of barriers did they already have? So because we had never spoken to the students, we didn't know which department they were coming from. So for me and for Yumi and Ulrike, it was a very quick but quite cruel way of assessing what they could already do with. And we didn't ask them why they chose the 3 or 4 picture cards they did, but at times I had a feeling that it just spoke to them. It just and they all generated a story within, I would say, 20 minutes. So it was a very brief story, but there was they just took a few notes, and within 20 minutes, there was a storyline. Now, to be fair, the one who struggled, but again, it's to do with language barrier, was the international student. Obviously for her, it was harder because of the language barrier, but they all managed to create a very short story within 20 minutes. It's a very valuable task from my point of view.
Thank you.
Oh, Tara, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Mary Sharp has a question. Maybe you want to ask yourself and direct it to the specific presenter. Is Mary there? Well, I can ask her question. So she wrote in the chat, do they work out details of their stories in Japanese? So I think this is for the Japanese language teaching presenters.
Yes, it was for Yumi.
Okay, do they work? I see. You mean the story I read out?
They chose a different, they chose images from different stories and put them together and created their own story. They were in groups of 2 or 3. Did they discuss in Japanese? Japanese is the language they're learning here with you, yes? Or did they speak in English?
That's a good point. Actually, when they're discussing, they were using English mostly, I think, because they're still elementary level, and so they can't sort of, with discussions, quite difficult. So they came up with, all the dialogues, obviously, in Japanese, but they were quite a lot of the time speaking in English.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, was a very nice question answer time, and actually it's close to 8 o'clock now. And Tara, what shall I do? We are actually thinking about 20 minutes group work and 20 minutes main room. Can we maybe just do the group work and then come up in the main room for like 5 minutes or so? Is that
I
okay with
think
everyone?
the group work could be 15 minutes and then we have a shorter time at the end. I think it is long for everybody, but I know you have a fun, engaging activity. So
Okay, so we have been very engaged already, but we have a little more things to do. So originally we were thinking about breakout rooms for like 20 minutes, but now put into 15 minutes, and we'll have maybe 5 minutes coffee break instead of 10 minutes. And I'm going to quickly explain what we are all going to do. So the activity is called My Dear Object. And this is to find any small thing can be made into Kamishibai. So instead of 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and each group has a choice between A and B. Choice A is more group discussion. Choice B is really right into story writing. And then come back on main room, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So choice A discussion is choose what you're going to do is each person choose favorite object, anything like phone or glasses or any favorite object, find any favorite object and write the dialogue with the object. Hi, my glasses. Thank you for always helping me watching anything, something like that, dialogue with the object. And present the dialogues if we have time, and discuss the following. Why would it be a suitable task for Kamishibai preparation? Why not? Would it lend itself to Kamishibai session, and how? Specify language level, etc. And so this is basically discussion. But choice B, it's actually a collaborative creation. And for this, the group you choose this one, choose one favorite object of the group. So you have to discuss on that and write a collaborative dialogue between the group and the object and create a draft. Just stick figure or color is fine. Kamishibai story on paper or via online slides from 2 to 4 pages. So you have 15 minutes and come back to main room, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And we'll have a little coffee break. During this time, we're going to make a breakout room. So by the time you come back after the coffee break, we should be ready to go into the breakout rooms.
Welcome back. Was it a great fun activity
Welcome
time?
back, everyone. So sorry for the very short period of time. We couldn't do much, but you know, this is actually a good starting point for everyone, and we can actually start thinking about it. But anyone, any group which actually did create anything, any Kamishibai, is there any group like that? Maybe not.
Yeah, yes, Natsuko. Yes, yes, we had two. So I'm going to ask Bob if he wants to, and then Bob, if you can tell your story. It's a dialogue with a coffee pot. Now, where is Bob? Bob is
Bob, you're mute.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Do you want me to go? Want me to go now?
Please, please.
Okay, here we go. Hey, where is he? Where is he? What happened to him? Where is he? Oh, there you are. Hey, Mr. Coffee Pot, how are you? I'm not doing so good. What's wrong? I'm looking for some fresh water. Oh, well, don't you count me as your friend, right? Oh yeah. But sometimes you're a little rough in the morning. Oh, I'll be more careful. I'll be more careful. Yeah. Where should we go? What do you want to do? Well, let's get some fresh water. I need some fresh water. How about we go out to the mountain spring? Yeah, I need to get outside. I need some fresh air. Yeah, me too. And as friends, we'll go together to the mountain spring and we'll get some fresh water. That's a good idea. Let's go.
Wow.
Fantastic.
already can be made into Kamishibai very, very quickly. Oh my gosh.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And we have and we have a second short Kamishibai. It's Koji. Koji, please, would you like to tell us? Thank you.
Yes, for me, I present you my precious coffee bottle. This will always be my buddy. No matter how tired I am, this is always there to cheer me up. This know all my hardships because we are always together. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the midnight. Now, we will always be together. However, it was my stimulating energy bottle and didn't put me to sleep. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Great, thank you so much. Actually, Tara also has a story.
Well, I could tell my story, but I just want to give Mary a chance if she wants to, because we missed out on hers.
That's right.
Well, I'm Zooming from a friend's room, and I noticed that she has on her desk a box that I made for her many years ago. She wanted her pet dog on the front. So I say, Teddy, I've been looking for you. Where have you been? Wang, 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 wang. I'm stuck on the top of this box. I can't get off. Oh, let me help you. Actually, I think this would be a fun Kamishibai. I might work on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we need to wrap up for now.
Sorry.
Yumi-san, please.
Yeah, sorry. Our team's one. Donna wrote down our story, I think.
Where are you, my phone? I'm hiding in your bag. I need you right now. If only you get me out of this darkness, I can help you. I like to look at you from time to time to see who sent a message to me. I'd like to be a help to you. There you are, my lovely. You are a miracle worker who connects me to people all around the world.
Thank you.
You also have a couple of stories, if I'm not interrupting anyone.
No.
Michael, I think, is speaking for us. Michael?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. There were 3 of us in the group. We came up with, 2 of us came up with an object. Miho was a picture, and she spoke of the picture and said, where were you from? And the picture had come from Malaysia. And she asked the picture, why are you in Rome? And the picture said, because I love you. And we could see very clearly how that would support a development into a Kamishibai, and it could be using all sorts of vocabulary, getting to the emotions of the students. And I had a little wooden frog. And the little story I did was I asked the frog, why are you made of wood? And the frog said, I wasn't always made of wood, but I was cursed. And I said, who cursed you? And the frog said, an evil magician, or an evil wizard, sorry. And again, we thought that could develop into quite a nice story to work in a Kamishibai. We did feel both stories would probably not really work until students had a reasonable level of vocabulary. Otherwise, it would be a bit of a stretch and a bit difficult. But we felt that both of them could involve the students and definitely would work as Kamishibai. Is that about right?
Absolutely. And what I really liked was the addition of the sound with the frog, because when you rub the frog's back with a wooden stick, it makes that wonderful croaky sound. So thank you, Michael and Miho.
Thank you, everyone. We've gotten right up to time, and I think this has been such a rich presentation, series of presentations from you all. So I just want to thank everybody and hope to see you at our next World Kamishibai Forum next month. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.